Hi, this is Stan. Welcome back to the Crow's Nest Railroad. This week we're going to install this panel in the ground, so hope you can stick around for that. Well, last week you may have noticed that I did not follow my desired pattern for the screws in putting the rail down. You can see here on my little diagram, this is set to remind me of it, but I got distracted with the camera when I walked on the other side to put the second rail down. I forgot to compensate, and so I used the same pattern on both sides of the rail, which I don't like to do. It really needs to be opposite. So does that really make any difference? Well, let's just talk about that really quickly. You can see here the pattern where the screws are this way diagonally on this side and that way. In other words, they're tugging in opposite directions. So if you put the screws in the same pattern, I don't have any tie plates or anything. I'm screwing directly into the tie. What you don't want to happen is the tie to twist like this when it's in the ground, because when that happens, it pulls the rails closer together. And if you have a deviation in the gauge on your railroad, you have a little more forgiveness if it widens just a little bit than if it goes too narrow. And that's because the flanges on the wheels are not adjustable. They are on the inside of the rail. So if the ties twist and the rail therefore becomes closer together, it binds on the flanges, and when it gets too tight, the truck wants to walk out and pop out and derail. You have the whole width of the wheel for a bit of forgiveness as the track widens. So that's really where you want your error to be. As soon as that track gets too tight, the truck walks right out and you're on the ground. So I really want to keep to this pattern where I screw in opposites on one rail to the other. Well, enough said about that. Let's go out and put this track panel in place. Well, the first step is the most difficult one, and that is determining where your right-of-way is going to be, and then with a pick and shovel, actually, as best you can, you roughly grade out where the track is going to be, removing the high spots and filling in the low spots. So that's already done. I did that back during the summer. Always trying to do heavy work when it's really hot. And so, but anyway, then the next step is to go through, and I distributed an inch or two of this quarter minus rock, laid it down, and it is going to be a medium that I can more easily grade and level than just the raw earth. So first thing, I'm going to lay the track down and kind of see where it falls, and then we'll do some grading on this quarter minus. I made a little wooden trowel of sorts with a handle on it, and I can put my little torpedo level on there, and I can begin to smooth and set a base for the track panel itself. The most important area of level is left to right this way. I don't want a lot of rocking side to side. All right, let's set the panel in and take a look. And that looks good. So now let's join the new panel with the old panel. Using some nuts and bolts, we're going to attach two of these to each rail at the joint, and it will squeeze the rail and connect them to each other. We don't want them so tight that the rails cannot move with heat expansion and contraction, but we want it firm enough that the two rail tips stay aligned together. And I've already left a little bit of a gap in there for expansion when it gets hot in the summer. So this tie and this tie are going to be removed because this is where the rail joins. They are going to be replaced with a double tie so that each end of the rail is supported underneath with a tie. In many cases, you can use the holes that are pre-drilled into the rail, and you can see they are oblong, they are not perfect circles, again, to give the rail some room to move. However, if you have to shorten the rail to make it line up properly, then you have to cut the rail and drill new holes. But this is fairly thin metal here on the two sides, so that's pretty easy to do. Okay, so just like when we're building the panels, we have to reattach the rail and gauge it to these railroad ties so that the gauge stays true all the way through the new section. Well, the gauge is good. Our ties are in place. So I'll rough level it out again, and then we'll backfill with some quarter minus ballast. Next is to go back and make sure our rails are level side to side. So I'll get busy on that. Well, I suppose it's obvious, but the more work you put into making sure that roadbed is level and smooth and that gravel base, you just don't have to do as much fiddling with the track to get it level. So now I'm going to take a big heavy rod and I'm going to go through and tamp in between each of the ties and smash that gravel down in and stabilize the track. Okay, I'm going to grab a broom and go back over and do a little sweeping. Now this area in here is a pretty high traffic area with this walkway, so the ballast comes almost up to the rail there, and I did it that way in the front of the house just to hide the rail as much as possible. But here in the back I'm not as concerned cosmetically, so if a little bit of the ties show, that's fine. It's pretty shaded back here. Actually, the sun is a formidable enemy to these wooden sleepers. And so it really works out pretty well if you cover them quite a bit to keep the sun off them. So ready for the final step for today anyway. So my last step today is to give it a good soaking. This is quarter minus, and it will help lock in those sleepers and the rail when it gets soaking wet. I'll probably soak it 2 or 3 times. Well, that about wraps up this episode of the Crow's Nest Railroad Update. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I'm not a professional YouTuber, so those of you that watch are greatly appreciated. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.